All right, so the whole live streaming thing is cool. That could be interesting, but I don't love it, and it's not very conducive to like interacting as an educator. You know, from an educational standpoint, I'm not sold on it. So what I want to do is I'm just going to start posting some videos to my YouTube that are about my artwork, maybe some historical context to some of the artwork, tell some stories about some of the boards I've created, and then also, you know, talk a little bit about the technique of it and maybe bring some educational value into that. And I want to start with probably, I guess you would say, the most well-known piece of artwork that I have ever created. This right here is the original Minneapolis Cherry Spoon skateboard. This is the actual physical one that I have hand-drawn. Most people probably haven't seen this. It never travels with me. Obviously, it's pretty different from the mass-produced board, which is right here. Hang on. There we go. The mass-produced is that's the mass production. That's the one that you see in skate shops. You've probably seen it on clothing, pint glasses. It's been in just a million different places. And anyway, this is a skateboard I'm pretty proud of, and I want to kind of tell you the story of where this skateboard came from. Let's go with the original here. So, this board is, oddly enough, and I'm really thankful that I did this. I don't know if you can see it at all, but on the back, I wrote, and it's super light right here. I wrote the date it was completed. It's almost completely faded now. This was completed 7/25/2004. So this board was originally created July 2004. So this one is now the original. Where are we at here? Well, I guess we're just shy of July 2020. This board's almost 16 years old. So that's pretty cool. I'm pretty pumped on that. It's a long run for a skateboard graphic. For example, the mass produced of this particular image, I want to say 2007. I made it into an actual graphic and started reproducing that skateboard. So 2007, 13-year run of a graphic. And it sells consistently to this day. The board sells. A shop like Cal Surf, for example, has been selling that graphic pretty much nonstop since 2007. It's a 13-year run of one graphic. In skateboarding, I'm not aware of too many other graphics that have done that, so I'm pretty proud of that. I think that's pretty cool. It doesn't really get acknowledged as like a core skate thing, which is fine with me. That's never really been what I'm about. So, but still, you can't argue that. That's a 13-year run. One graphic's pretty awesome. So anyway, back to the board itself. This board was drawn. This is right around the time, initially when I started getting skateboards from Pineski's way back in the day, down around 2004, right when I first started drawing on skateboard. I had drawn probably 6 or 7 versions of this Skyline. And the first one that I did, I showed you briefly in a different video. That one was like kind of the test run, and that's where I really planted the seed, the bug for that. I think this could be pretty cool to make Skylines, and I really fell in love with the look and was very happy with that. And so this one I think turned out actually pretty well. This one is probably my favorite of all the Skylines I've drawn, not only because it's become the commercially successful piece of artwork for me, but also I liked it. I liked the simpleness of it and the subtlety of it. It was actually a really, if you really dig deep into the original, you can see a lot of detail here. And you can see a lot of the line work and so on. And again, just all ultrafine black Sharpie. So this board, I'm pretty excited about it. It's been since coated with an epoxy resin. So there's kind of like, I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of like a glass over the top of it. So I basically drained it in epoxy resin to preserve the artwork. So that I noticed over time, this board had traveled with me for probably over 10 years. It would come to every single art show. Early on when I was doing a lot of educational stuff, this was with me all the time, the original. I don't travel with this anymore. This stays home, it stays safe. It doesn't go out into the wild with me. But yeah, I noticed over time that eventually it does start to fade. So when you're creating a skateboard with Sharpies, you do have to do some protective measures. to continue to keep the artwork on the board. The most obvious is just like this clear coat, as we discussed. A little clear coat UV resin spray. This one works just fine. Matte, Krylon, clear coat UV resin spray. And the other one that you can do is just basically like a liquid acrylic, like some sort of a matte gesso, that type of thing. That's going to help actually as well. A lot of times what you find is there's oils in your skin, and as you're handling your skateboards, those oils are pulling away the ink of the Sharpie, so you start to lose some of that. So that's why it's really important to treat your skateboards after you've finished a piece of artwork. I will say this, with this spray, whenever you're using a spray paint of any type, any sort of matte or anything like that on a skateboard, when you spray it, you want it to be away from your skateboard, 6 inches at least, and you never stop moving your hand. Always move the hand. Never stop moving the hand. So we're kind of working our way backwards here, because we're talking about the end result. But if you spray too close and you just hold it there, it would just wipe away all of that Sharpie. The ink will react to the spray paint, the chemicals will react, and it just falls right off your skateboard. And it's tragic when you see somebody that's worked on a piece of artwork for hours and hours and hours going to try and spray it, and then to watch the artwork just slide right off the skateboard. Funny story about that. I was once doing an album cover for Growler magazine, and I was drawing a hop, like the beer hops on a skateboard for Growler as like a craft beer and culture magazine here in the Midwest. And I had bought a cheaper brand, or like an unknown kind of offline brand of clear coat, and I went to spray the board the night before the artwork was due, the deadline for the cover, and everything I had just made just wiped away, wiped clean right off the skateboard. So I had to start from scratch. Night of, at like 11 p.m. I started working on the cover of that magazine. So if you're gonna do that, be very careful with that spray paint. When you're doing this matte spray, super careful, because what you wanna do is one light layer from a distance. I mean, it's even back as far as 2 feet, and then slowly work your way closer. Make sure each layer dries completely before you add another layer, and you can put up to as many layers of this as you want. But be really diligent about staying a safe distance from it. Always moving. Can never stops moving. You never sit still and spray. You're always in motion. Anyway, back to this board. Obviously, this is the Cherry in the Spoon. And in Minneapolis here, we have the Twin Cities has a sculpture garden, the Walker Sculpture Garden, and the Cherry Spoon is a sculpture by Klaus Oldenburg, which is very famous. It's sort of an iconic image here in Minneapolis. It's similar to like the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, or the Statue of Liberty in New York City, or anything that sort of is this monument to the city. We have the Cherry Spoon here in Minneapolis. So this gets a lot of love locally, and I'm really proud of this skateboard. I love the way it turned out, and that's why this week I'm going to try and kind of start to replicate some of this. So I think we'll just kind of call this whole series Stories of the Board. And that just rolled right off the tongue. Stories of the Board, that's it. And I'll just kind of tell you a little bit about some of the artwork I've made, and then hopefully kind of interject some of the educational aspects into that. So like with a board like this is reason it's commercially successful is it resonates with the audience. Everybody from Minneapolis recognizes this and can identify with this piece of artwork, and they tend to feel a sense of pride. So as a professional artist, as you're creating something, you're not always necessarily creating with subject matter with your audience in mind, but if you do, if you do try to make something commercially, think about what the audience would like to see, and give it your own spin. And I got really lucky, I think, early on. This was made July 25th, 2004. And, to have a piece of artwork that's coming up on 16 years old that is still generating income and still sells and still has the amount of interest that this skateboard has maintained for me is really something I'm incredibly proud of. So you never know, even early on, you never want to like throw something out and disregard a piece of artwork as worthless, because you just never know where it can go and what it can become. So this one was pretty cool. Very simple technique, super simple. I don't know how well you can see it on the screen here, but Realistically, I drew this in 1 or 2 nights. So it was probably 4 to 5 hours of actual drawing time. And yeah, it's a super basic crosshatch. There's some minor elements of light source, but for the most part, this is second most prized possession I own, next to the very first skateboard I ever created. So, long story short, there you go. Stories of the board. Number 1, the original cherry spoon, drawn with Sharpie Ultra Fine, all black, 1 pen. That's the first installment, so that's kind of how we'll do it. I think I'll just upload this to YouTube, share it. We'll go from there. And if you have questions, then you can comment in the comment sections of the YouTube video or on Facebook or wherever it's shared, and I can answer those questions. I think that's going to be our better route than trying to do live. Yeah, I'll be happy to kind of share some artwork with you and share some stories. And as you're creating artwork, one of the things we talked about is that every piece of artwork tells a story. You're interacting with your audience one way or another. Everyone that looks at a piece of artwork is having an interaction with that artwork. It's a pretty special thing. It's a powerful thing. So as an artist, don't take that responsibility lightly. You're telling stories, you're creating culture. There is no culture without art. So it's a responsible job from when you first begin to when you're Pablo Picasso. All right. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Stories of the Board. Later.